This week we will cover the chapter of measuring research variables. Today we will discuss fundamental criteria for judging the quality of measures used in collecting data validity and reliability. Of these two concepts, which one is more important? A test cannot be considered valid if it is not reliable. In other words, if the test is not consistent, then the test cannot be trusted. On the other side, scores from a test can be reliable yet not valid, but it can never be valid if it is not reliable. Can anyone give us an example with this case? Weighing yourself repeatedly on a broken scale would give reliable results, but not valid ones. When collecting data, we are concerned with the validity of the measurements we are using. For example, a study seeks to compare training methods for improving cardiovascular fitness. We must have scores that produce a valid measure of fitness to evaluate the effectiveness of the training methods. What do we use? Validity of measurement indicates the degree to which a test or instrument measures what it purports to measure. It refers to the soundness of the interpretation of scores from a test, the most important consideration in measurement. How do we establish validity? There are different purposes for using certain measures. Therefore, there are different kinds of validity. They are logic, content, criterion, and construct. Logical validity. It is also known as face validity. It refers to the condition that is claimed when the measure obviously involves the performance being measured. In other words, it means that the test is valid by definition. A typical example is static balance. What is static balance? A static balance test that consists of balancing on one foot has logical validity. Validity. Condition that is claimed when a test adequately samples what was covered in the course. As with logic validity, no statistical evidence can be supplied for content validity. It pertains largely to learning in educational settings. A test has content validity if it adequately samples what was covered in the course. Criterion validity. It refers to degree to which scores on a test are related to some recognized standard, or criterion. Measurements used in research studies are frequently validated against some criterion. There are two main types of criterion validity: concurrent validity and predictive validity. Concurrent is a type of criterion validity that involves correlating an instrument with some criterion that is administered at about the same time. Popular criterion measures include an already validated or accepted measure such as lab techniques. It is usually employed when the researcher wishes to substitute a shorter, more easily administered test for a criterion that is more difficult to measure. For example, we use International Physical Activity Questionnaire to capture individuals' daily physical activity. There are two forms of survey: 24-item and 12-item surveys. Ideally, we want to use the short form in the real world to save time. Therefore, we can recruit 200 adults and have them completed the two forms of survey. Then we can do concurrent validity test. If the short form survey demonstrates acceptable validity, then we can use the short form in research. Predictive is the degree to which scores of predictor variables can accurately predict criterion scores. When the criterion is some later behavior, entrance examinations used to predict later success. An example at that, GRE usually predicts success in graduate studies. Construct validity. Degree to which a test measures a hypothetical construct and is usually established by relating the test results to some behavior. For example, certain behaviors are expected of someone with a high degree of sportsmanship. Such a person might be expected to compliment the opponent of shots made during a tennis match. For an indication of construct validity, The researcher can compare the number of times a person scoring high on a test of sportsmanship complimented the opponent with the number of times a person scoring lower on the test did so. Known group difference method is sometimes used in establishing construct validity. It is a method in which the test scores of groups that should differ on a trait or ability are compared. For example, construct validity of a test of anaerobic power can be demonstrated by comparing test scores of sprinters and jumpers with those of distance runners. If a test is valid, it measures what it purports to measure. Then, is the measure repeatable or consistent? Observed score equals true score error score. It is part of validity. It is part of validity. It pertains to the consistency, or repeatability, of a measure. A test cannot be considered valid if it is not reliable. In other words, if you cannot depend on successive trials to yield the same results, then the test cannot be trusted. A test score obtained by an individual is the observed score. Theoretically, an observed score consists of the person's true score and error score. True score is the individual's real score and does not contain measurement error. Error score is the part of an observed score that is attributed to measurement error. Observed score equals true score error score. Our goal is to remove error, minimize error to yield the true score. Bottom line is unreliable measures cannot be valid, because they are not measuring anything. Reliable measures may be invalid. They can be consistent,